Hello, and welcome to the Friday Night Author Roundtable. I'm your host, Chris Baker, and during the next half hour, we'll be speaking with several very talented authors about their newly released books, what their inspiration was for creating their unique stories, and why it would be a great book to read and share with your friends and family. For anyone, especially leaders in the church who have ever contemplated spiritual maturity and the spiritual maturity of individuals and their flock, I think this next book on the Friday Night Author Roundtable is going to be a great resource. The book is called Measuring Spiritual Maturity, a process of moving people from spiritual babies to spiritual adults by author Dr. Randy Tompkins from Christian Faith Publishing. Randy, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it.
Now tell everybody about your book.
The basis of it is to give church leaders and church members a avenue by which they can track their own spiritual growth. We don't seem to have anything out there to do that other than a 1 or 2 time application. And so I wanted to give them a way that they could see over a period of time how they're growing or not growing or declining in certain areas of the Christian life.
Now, what inspired you to write this book? And did you draw from any of your own personal experiences?
Well, I did. I've been a minister for 50 years, and I actually was in a doctoral program, and I was in a class that we were going to talk about our dissertation, and I had something in mind, and by the time the dean got to me, 5 people had already taken my topic. And I had opened my mouth just to say, I'll get back to you. I have nothing in my brain right now. And the words that came out were measuring spiritual maturity. It was just a deal from God. And God led me through a lot of different things over a period of time and revealed some things to me that I had not seen before. And so it literally was a gift from God.
Now, how was it working with Christian Faith Publishing to be able to get this book published and to be able to share this message?
It has been wonderful. I have been told throughout the years that it would be like pulling teeth, and it would take many, many years to get something done through a professional publishing company. Within just weeks of me first contacting them, they had responded to me, and literally within 5 months, we had a book ready to go to press.
Now, do you think you might do this again, maybe a follow-up to this, or do you have anything else you're working on or planning to write?
Yes, I do. One of the things I've noted in my work the last several years is we are not having people who are in charge or charged with the responsibility of handling the administration of churches that come through professional training. Most of the time, it's let's get somebody, a layman out of the pew, and let's ask them to do this. And they don't have any training. So I'm looking at putting together a book that will give them some guidance on how do you administrate the different areas of the church life.
Oh, excellent. Well, we look forward to that. Now, this book, Measuring Spiritual Maturity, when people read this, whether church leaders or individuals, what do you hope is the most important thing they get from this, the most important message?
That the spiritual growth is more than just attendance. It is the involvement of getting into God's Word, seeing what's there, but it's also a process of learning more about themselves and their relationship to God past salvation time. Many people just, when they get saved, they think that's the end of it and they go about their business. So there's a lot more to it. This particular survey that's in the book is only one of 2, I think, that not only have the different elements like Bible reading and spiritual awareness, it also uses fruit of the Spirit. And so you can see how you're doing with love and joy and peace and goodness and that. All of those.
Well, this is such a great book because I think far too often, sadly, we get comfortable and complacent in our spiritual walk. And I think a book like this is going to be a great measuring stick for how we are in developing in our spiritual maturity, both with church leaders and individual church members. I think it's going to be a great book, and I encourage everyone to pick up their copy. The book is called Measuring Spiritual Maturity, a process to move people from spiritual babies to spiritual adults by author Dr. Randy Tompkins from Christian Faith Publishing. Get your copy today, Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, online, the brick and mortar stores, the handful of the locations. And Randy, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Chris, for calling me. This has been a good time.
Our next book on the Friday Night Author Roundtable, a book I'm really fascinated to find out more about. The book is called Peace, Love, Happiness, and Joy for God's Universe by author Glenn Scott Allistair Simpson from Christian Faith Publishing. Glenn, thank you for being on the show.
Oh, Well, thank you, Chris.
Now tell everybody about this book.
Well, the title says a lot. Peace comes from the Old Testament. If you follow the law, likely you have peace. The New Testament, love. Jesus Christ said, love God, love thy neighbor as thyself. I believe if you have both peace and love together, you have happiness. And if you're blessed by God, you have joy. The first word, peace, is to accomplish world peace. I'm a presidential candidate, and I want to help form a world government for world peace. Someday be known possibly as the Messiah, the second coming, and the resurrection. Altogether, just to accomplish world peace. However we have to do it to accomplish world peace.
Now, what inspired you to write this book? Where did that all kind of start?
Reading the Bible. I became a born-again Christian. I also identify as a Unitarian Universalist. So I accept Christianity, Islam, atheism, agnostic, anything you want to be, fine with me. Jewish is fine. My mother was Jewish. I go to synagogue, and I go to church, and I go to Unitarian Universalist congregation.
If you're talking about a target audience, who's the person that you really want to see this book get into the hands of?
This book is for the individual. When I say peace, I mean inner peace, inner love, inner happiness, and inner joy for the reader. Of course, I would like world leaders to read this book, including the President, the Pope, the Queen of England, Congress. I do want to be elected President, so I would like the Electoral College to read it, and Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un. I want to help accomplish world peace.
Now, how was it working with Christian Faith Publishing to get this book published and to be able to share this message?
They are better than I could have ever imagined. My publicist, Jordan, has been fantastic. She has sent me a guide that helps me tremendously. And they offered me this service here, which I'm so very pleased to have. Thank you, Chris.
Oh, of course. Now, are you working on anything new? Do you have anything new you're writing, or maybe a follow-up to this down the road?
Well, I have 3 books. If you look at my website, presidentworldleader.com, I have 3 books, and I'm going to be working on another one once I get enough royalties to reinvest. It'll be a coloring book, the Glenn Scott Allistair Simpson coloring book, like Donald Trump had and Hillary Clinton had when they were engaged in their campaign in 2016.
Well, excellent. Well, we look forward to that. Now, this book, Peace, Love, Happiness, and Joy for God's Universe. When people read this book, what do you hope is the most important thing they gain from it? What's the most important message?
I have a campaign message in the book, and that is, help others, it helps you, because it's a relationship, and if the other person grows, you can grow with them. You never know, they may grow so big as to help you down the road, too. So, love thy neighbor as thyself.
That is such a wonderful message and a powerful message, especially in this day and age. And I encourage everyone to pick up their copy today. The book is called Peace, Love, Happiness, and Joy for God's Universe by author Glenn Scott Allistair Simpson from Christian Faith Publishing. You can get your copy today, Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, online, as well as at the brick and mortar stores. And Glenn, thank you for being on the show.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Pleasure talking with you, Chris.
This next book on the Friday Night Author Roundtable, I really am excited to find out more about it. It's one part touching story, it's one part heartbreak, and very eye-opening, I think, at the heart of it. The book is called Sophia's Gift by author Kathleen Heyd from Christian Faith Publishing. Kathleen, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Now tell everybody a bit about this story.
From her mother's perspective, Sophia's Gift is a love story. Sophia was an amazing special needs child that changed our lives. She taught us unconditional love, inspiration, and miracles that happened on a daily basis. She was amazing. Despite her disabilities, she continued to progress and go to school and have as normal life as she possibly could. Sophia was in a wheelchair because she had cerebral palsy along with other special needs. One day, just after her 6th birthday, her and her sister were watching television in our living room. Sophia actually slipped down in her wheelchair and became trapped. She asphyxiated, and I called 911 and did CPR, and we took her to the trauma unit. However, tragically, Sophia passed away 1 week later. The whole purpose of the story is just to bring awareness that wheelchairs are not, it's not like when you go buy a stroller, you have safety standards on those strollers. Wheelchairs do not have safety standards. It's a Class 1 medical device, just like a bandage or an examination glove. I really believed by pressing through with FDA, I could get wheelchairs reclassified to a Class 2, which would make the product safer. However, ultimately, it just comes down to the main safety specification the manufacturers are relying on is attending. And in their description, attending is never taking your eyes off the child. So as unrealistic as this would be for a child with special needs, still the blame fell to me, her mother. And parents of children with special needs already have tremendous responsibilities on a daily basis. But this is the goal of the book. This is one more fact they need to know, that this can happen to any child in any wheelchair. It could happen on the bus or at school, at the playground, or their very own living room, as it did with Sophia. I wrote this book to share the gifts Sophia's life brought to us. Protecting other precious kiddos like her is why I have put myself out there and gone through my story and shared it with the world.
Now, how was it working with Christian Faith Publishing to be able to get this book published and to get this message and this story about Sophia and her life out there?
They were wonderful. They were actually the first publisher I contacted and shared the story, and they were very helpful through the whole process of revisions and things, how to say them and what to say and when to say it. So they were with me every step of the way. Even now, ordering books and going to my venues that I sell the book, they're there to make sure I get the books on time and get everything that I need from them to do a job well done.
And when people read this book, Sophia's Gift, what do you hope is the most important? I'm pretty sure you've touched on it here and there as we've talked, but what do you hope is the most important thing people get from reading this book and reading Sophia's story?
I would say that a lot of this is very heartfelt. I know God was inspiring me to write this. I actually began it in July of 2016 after a conference, and it was really hard to get through last year to where the end, because of course I know the outcome. The audience probably knows the outcome. However, it's just a very real, passionate love story of what we had for her, what we've gone through, and what I want to spare any other person to go through. And God was there every step of the way, guiding me, encouraging me to be real, to be me, and not to hold back. One thing I wanted to add is I do have a website, sophiasgift.org. On there is a place to email me directly if you have any questions or concerns. That is what this book is all about, to bring awareness and for me to help any way I can.
This is the type of book I think everyone needs to pick up because, like you said, it's a story of a young girl who touched her family's life, but it's also an eye-opening account of how we need to do more to protect these little ones, and everyone needs to pick up their copy and be more informed. The book is called Sophia's Gift by author Kathleen Heyd from Christian Faith Publishing. Get your copy today, Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, online, as well as at the brick-and-mortar stores, just a few of the locations. And Kathleen, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
This next book on the Friday Night Author Roundtable, I'm really excited to find out more about it. It takes an interesting look at the different stages of one's life. The book is called Dear Lord, You Are Enough for Me by author Huila Covington from Christian Faith Publishing. Huila, thank you for being on the show.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Now tell everybody a little bit about your book.
My book actually shows the presence of God throughout one's life, his benevolence throughout one's life from beginning to end.
Now, what inspired you to write this book? Where did that all kind of start?
Well, as I asked God repeatedly for many years to really help me understand his character, who he is, I really wanted to get to know God for myself. The Lord began to show me the different names that he's known by and speak to reveal himself to me through his name. And that's how the book, Dear Lord, You Are Enough for Me, came about, because it really just shows that God is with us in every stage of our life, in every situation in our life, that he already has his plans for us, and we just need to learn how to trust and lean on God and call upon him in whatever situation we're in, and God will work it out.
Who's the target for this book?
Okay, originally my target readers were adults or mature readers to the younger children. However, as I began to write the commentary journals that I have that are assigned to this book, I quickly realized that the book is actually for all ages. I think as one grows older and goes through life experiences, the title, Dear Lord, You Are Enough for Me, can become an anthem for them. So sort of as a reminder that we need to seek God in His presence in our lives and no one else. We need to go directly to God. I believe we must understand that God really is all we need. He will supply our every need. He will bring people to us to help us. His Holy Spirit will lead and guide us into all truth. And Jesus is a comforter to us, and that we can depend on God for what we need. So basically, my target audience is all ages.
Now, how was it for you working with Christian Faith Publishing to be able to get this book published?
Oh, my gosh, what a wonderful experience. I was able to get my book to them. I went through the editing process for about a year and a half, almost 2 years, I think probably 2 years. But surprisingly, they were never impatient with me. They always listened to me. They were willing to edit whatever changes I needed, and they were quick. They had quick responses, quick turnarounds, and so they're very, very, very professional. And I recommend Christian Faith to other Christian authors, especially those that are new at this whole process. And so I just, my first person that I worked with was Amanda, and she was just so sweet and so caring. And then the person I worked with right at the end of my book, when my book went through the second editing process, was Serena, and she gave me really great advice, and I just love them. I love Christian Faith.
Now, are you working on anything new? Do we have anything lined up down the road?
I do. I have 3 new books that I'm working on simultaneously, and so I'm really looking forward to getting those out.
Oh, excellent. Well, we look forward to talking to you about those in the future. Now, this book, Dear Lord, You Are Enough for Me. When people read this, what do you hope is the most important message they get from reading your book?
The message I want them to receive is that they can, when they feel that they need help, they can go directly to God, that will be their first response. I want them to be able to look supernaturally to God, to be their first response to get help, and then allow God to do what He's going to do for them.
Well, that's such a fantastic message, and a message we all need, because God is there for us through all the stages of our life, and I think people are going to find that hope in this book and a whole lot more. The book is called Dear Lord, You Are Enough for Me by author Huila Covington from Christian Faith Publishing. You can get your copy today, Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, online, the brick-and-mortar stores, just a few of the locations. And Huila, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me.
Many families with special needs family members, they understand that there's some good days, there's some not so good days. And I think this next book in the Friday Night Author Roundtable takes a really realistic look at this situation that a lot of families find themselves in these days. The book is called Something Extra by author Jill Roegge from Christian Faith Publishing. Jill, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Let's tell everybody a little bit about your book.
My book is about our family's journey with a child who is different. My son Isaac has Down syndrome, and I've often felt that people are a little intimidated or embarrassed and don't want to ask questions. So I put our story out there to help put people at ease and to advocate, help people become aware of families who have a child who is different.
Now, what inspired you to take that step? And, you'd lived this life and these experiences. And what made you decide, I'm going to put this into a book and share this? Where did that whole process kind of start for you?
It actually started when I was pregnant with Isaac 21 years ago. My doctor told me, you're going to have to advocate for this child for the rest of his life. And I've tried to do that in numerous ways, but about 5 years ago, I took to social media in October, which is Down Syndrome Awareness Month, and I began writing posts every day in October about our family or situations that happen. And I've done this for about 4 or 5 years, and people are like, you should put this into a book form. So really, this book is just a collection of the posts and glimpses into our daily life with Isaac.
And I have to imagine, as far as a target audience, of course, families with a special needs child are going to be able to relate to this. But I got to imagine that even those, especially those who don't understand, this is probably more geared towards them. Is that kind of what you had in mind?
Yes, To some extent, I want families who have someone who is different in their family to read it and feel reassured that they are not alone and help them to relate. But I also feel like my target readers are maybe teachers, neighbors, friends from church, and even medical providers who maybe don't realize what is going on in a home on a day-to-day basis. And it just offers them some insight into what families may be experiencing, and that may help each of those people in their interactions with someone who is different.
Now, how was it working with Christian Faith Publishing to get this book published and to be able to share this?
My experience with Christian Faith was very easy and very swift. I was very pleased. Each step was guided along perfectly by a publishing specialist, and it was a very easy process for me.
Well, when people read this, what do you hope is the most important message that they gain from reading this book and reading about your experiences?
I hope that they realize there are people who are different with differing abilities, and I hope that they realize that our life is a little different. We have some of the same challenges. We have some different challenges, but I want those who are family members to realize, yeah, we're not alone in this, and I want others to realize that this is what families go through on a day-to-day basis.
This is a wonderful book that, like you just said, families who are in a similar situation will have that hope that they're not alone. And I think it'll be very eye-opening for those who aren't in that situation. And I think everyone needs to pick up their copy of this book. The book is called Something Extra by author Jill Roegge from Christian Faith Publishing. You can get your copy Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, online, as well as at the brick-and-mortar stores, just a few of the locations. And Jill, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Chris.
Our next book on the Friday Night Author Roundtable, I think it'll be a great book, especially for young ladies. The book is called Dressing Room, an autobiography of Vanesia Thompson from Christian Faith Publishing. Vanesia, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Now, tell everybody a little bit about your book.
Well, it's hopefully to inspire young women that live ungrateful lives, like they went through a lot and maybe their parents don't believe what they're going through, to not run to the street and get doing the bad things in life and to concentrate on doing better things and something constructive. It takes me through the ups and downs of going through that and how God was there for me and how I was born and with Him and everything and been raised going to church and everything and still being attacked by the world and without having the proper guidance what can happen. And how He looked out for me and brought me through everything and allowed me to make it through everything. So I thought I would warn other females or males, like what's out there. If you don't make it through it, you can die out there, and it'd be better to make better choices.
Now, how was it for you as an author to be able to take, some of the things you've experienced in your life and to be able to use this as a tool to help other young ladies and people in general?
Because I thought I was in it alone, and I thought that other people went through it, but I thought it was a norm, and I started trying to adapt to it as a norm, which it wasn't. And so it made me think more on how I could help someone pull them out so they won't feel like they're alone and have nowhere to go, and that you always have God in yourself, and He's inside of you, and He gives you the power to overcome all the obstacles.
Now, how was it working with Christian Faith Publishing to be able to share this story and to share this message?
Oh, they made it very easy for me because I never wrote a book before or even knew how to type. And Miss Marie was my first encounter, and she stuck through with me and explained everything as simple as a kid could understand, to where we were able to get through it all together.
Now, have you thought about maybe a follow-up to this down the road, or are you working on anything new?
I am. I would really see like a film or something coming out of this book, and I'm on my second book now, Humble Beginnings, and I'm going to just keep writing because I like it. I've learned so much growing up through these things, and everybody they're interested when I'm telling them the situations. So I feel like if I put it in a book, it'll be entertaining as well as true.
We look forward to much more from you down the road. Now, this book, Dressing Room, when people read this, what do you hope is the most important message that they get?
That our purpose in life is to bear God's fruit, no matter what type of way we end up having to do it and what type of cards we're dealt in life. We have to still focus on what our whole purpose of being alive. And so as long as we get that right in the relationship with God, I feel like more good things come to us, and then we're also trying to pull someone out along the way, because it's never meant just for for us is really meant for someone that's looking at our lives and allowing them to see how God is real.
That's a fantastic message, and this is one of those books where, I think it's great because it helps, especially the young kids, know that they're not alone, and it does have that message of hope for them. The book is called Dressing Room, an autobiography of Vanesia Thompson from Christian Faith Publishing. You can get your copy today at Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, online, as well as the brick and mortar stores. Those are just a handful of the locations. And Vanesia, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us for the Friday Night Author Roundtable. We'll be back next week with another great group of talented authors to discuss their books, their process, and their accomplishments. Have a great weekend, everyone.